Hi, welcome to Building SaaS with Python and Django. My name is Matt Lehman, and on this stream we work on a Django app, and I teach you what I know about Django, and I've been doing this for many years, so hopefully I can pass on some knowledge to you. Tonight we're going to be working on a continuation of my homeschool project. We're going to integrate Django-htmx. If you haven't heard of HTMX before, it's a cool little JavaScript library that lets you do dynamic stuff on your web pages. And I have a need for it on my project, so we're going to go through the process of integrating that tonight to finish off a feature that I've been working on the past few streams. Before we do that, though, I want to say thank you to my patrons of Rupert, Andrew, Dragos, Patrick, Eric, Philip, Miguel, Peter, and Shivan. I appreciate your contributions to help make some of this possible and give me some financial motivation to keep going. If you would like to become a patron, if you like what you see after watching the stream, you can go to patreon.com/mblehman and support me that way. If you're not able to do that, you can give me a like or a comment or a thumbs up or whatever. Follow wherever you're coming from, whether that's Twitch or YouTube. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have, so I would be happy to do that. If you're live on the stream, you're welcome to ask me anything about Python, Django, or web development. The process that we do here is that I work on an app, but I do take plenty of breaks to answer your questions as you might have them. So you can see some development as it's going on for a real application, which is what this is. It's serving real customers. But you also get to ask questions that you might have about web development. So let's get into the code, shall we? The first thing that we need to do is add Django-htmx. And so why am I doing this? I was working on a feature, and I guess maybe it makes sense to remind people of what's going on. And that feature is a bulk deletion page. So if we come over to this page and we come over here, and the vast majority of this actual page is complete with the exception of one thing. And let's go to the app and go to where this feature is. So we've got this feature we've been working on, and it's the ability to delete a bunch of tasks at once. So here's all of our tasks, and we have this possibility to come into where? My brain is not remembering stuff. Well, what's going on, brain? Let me check my issue list. Am I thinking of the right thing? This should be task deletion. Make it possible to bulk delete tasks. That is the thing we're working on. What? So what I'm looking for, and what I'm surprised about, is that there should be a button that actually gets you to that ability to do that deletion. So where did I put that? I would think it would be right here. My brain is like not recalling that, though. That's pretty. Oh, you know what it is? Ha! I had to do some upgrades to my project, and I'm on the master branch rather than the actual branch that does this work. So we want to switch branches to the bulk delete branch. All right, I'm not crazy. I'm just working on an older branch and doing it somewhere else. So, okay. Let's try this again, shall we? Let's refresh the page. Hey, there it is. So this is the button we were hoping to find. And you click this button, you get this page. It's not a very complicated page, but the idea is boom, boom, boom. You click some task that you want to delete, and then you click this. And here's where we're going to observe the goofy behavior that happens right now and the thing that we're going to try and fix. So I'm going to actually just click one because I want a bunch of these to be around. But you can get the idea that this would expand to many. And I should be able to click this and hit delete, and it should take me back to the course page. But instead, it's not going to do that. So I'm going to click delete, and you'll see what happens. There's a confirmation button. We'll click that, and boom. Okay, so rather than taking me to the page that I wanted to go to, it loaded that entire page into the delete button and gave this funky result with this red background on that. That's clearly not the desirable behavior. So what happened there? When we implemented this feature, we used HTMX, and I'll show you the code so we can get a flavor for it. This would be the bulk delete page. So there's a bulk delete somewhere in here. Here it is. And there should be HX. Yeah. So we're doing a post of this particular page, this bulk delete page, and you saw the confirmation. And so when we click that confirm button, it does a post request to the actual web server. And that web server processes it and does the actual task deletion. And what it's doing at the end is it should be doing a redirect back to the course page. And that is actually happening in the code. If we go over to the courses views area and look for this bulk delete page, which should be down here, you can see that it does issue this redirect. And I tried to do some stuff here and it wasn't quite working. So what's happening is that the redirect is happening at the browser level, so HTMX doesn't have any time to react to that response. So rather than doing what I intended to do, which is to have HTMX do the redirect, which is what I was hoping for with this HX redirect property, instead the browser is doing the redirect for it, and it's loading that and returning a real response. And by the time HTMX gets it, it doesn't know about this redirect stuff because it's already happened. And so it's loading that response into the spot where it's being called at, which is the default behavior of HTMX. The reason that happens is because we're using Django's HTTP response redirect, which is going to do the standard thing and return 301 or 302. I never remember the status code for redirects. It's one of those two though. But what HTMX is expecting is a response code of 200 with this response header attached to it, HTTP header. So that's the problem in a nutshell. And the way I was solving it, I could make this work if I passed in a status code and did all that. But it's not a very elegant solution. It requires a bunch of fiddling. And the nice part is there's a cool package out there that can make this happen for us in an elegant way. And that package is Django-htmx. Now, Django-htmx is kind of a thin layer that wraps on top of Django and provides some nice features that you can use when you're using the HTMX library like we are. And we're going to add this project tonight. I have used it on another project before. I haven't actually used this redirect feature before, so that'll be new. But we'll go through this process of adding this, and we'll see if there's any actual other stuff in here that we might want to take advantage of, because I think there is some goodies in there that I want to start using. I just hadn't committed to it yet. So first things first, we need to go to the requirements file, and I use a tool called pip tools, and it has a pip compile command. So what I need to do to actually install packages for my app is a two-step process. First, I need to add the actual package to this requirements.in file, and then compile a txt file, and then install that. So it's some kind of a multi-step process. So we'll come over here and we'll say Django-htmx. Now I don't know the latest version of HTMX, so let's go. It's probably knowing Adam, it's probably his release tag, but let's just look at PyPI for reference and get the definitive answer, because I want to pin to a specific version of HTMX. And here we are, the latest version is 1.6.0. Now I'm also on the latest version of Django and stuff, so I know that this is going to have compatibility. Also, Adam dutifully tells us that it does. So we're supported from Django 2.2 to 4.0, and I am on 3.2, I believe. So we can say, what was the number? 160 as the value that we want to put for Django-htmx. And let's stop the web server. And we're going to run a pip compile command. So pip compile, and it's going to take the requirements.in file that you can see there, and it's going to output this requirements.txt file. So let's go ahead and do that. I don't think that HTMX actually has any dependencies, so this might be a kind of a boring change output, but never know. There might be some surprise in there that I'm not aware of. I think it's a pretty lightweight package though. So what this is doing right now is, and the reason I do this, to be really clear, is I want to capture in the requirements.in file the packages that my application uses directly. So we're about to use HTMX. I want to capture that directly. And that's some interesting reordering stuff. So that's what the requirements.in file does. The requirements.txt file is the whole list of packages. In the fancy term, it's the transitive closure of all the packages. It just means all that is fancy speak for is the dependencies that I care about for my particular project, and all of their dependencies too. So a whole tree of dependencies, and it all gets flattened into one file in requirements.txt. And that's what matters. That's the thing that we actually want to install. The benefit of doing this kind of two-phase approach is you know what packages you have, and then you also like compile out to the stuff you care about, and so you get a very repeatable installation process, because every package that you want to install and all the packages that come along with it all have their version number pinned. So that's really good for making something that's deterministic as much as can be done in a reasonable manner with Python. Okay, so we've got this change added to the requirements.in file. It did some weird stuff. I was surprised that it seemed to move the Django to the bottom. I don't know why that happened. If my pip version changed, pip tools, that could be, and it did some reordering there on different alpha sorting stuff. So I don't really understand that part, but it didn't materially change it. I mean, we can look at that diff. So let's go ahead and add that to the stage. And we also want to do a pip compile. And because of some local funky stuff with my SSL setup here, I have to do this LD flags. Don't worry about that part. The part to pay attention to is that we're pip installing the requirements files down here. So we'll do that. And it's going to run through a bunch of stuff. And you'll see at the very end, the only thing that it added, because I ran pip install recently, was it installed the Django-htmx package, which is what we need to do our work tonight. Okay, so we've got those changes made to the actual packaging, and now it's time to actually integrate this. So let's go to the documentation and look at what it says here. So the first thing to do is to add Django-htmx to the list of installed apps. So we can go to the settings file and go down to installed apps, and I like to sort these alphabetically, so we'll put it right here after Django extensions. So Django-htmx, that's step one. And the other thing that says to do is add this Django-htmx middleware. The middleware, if you go and look at it, which I have done, it adds an HTMX property to the HTTP request, which is then useful in your views. So let's do that next. Now, he doesn't really give any opinions here on where to put this middleware. I'm not sure that it matters very much, so let's find a reasonable spot for it. I generally try and put stuff after the Django middleware. So all of this Django middleware is up here. White noise has to be up early, and I customized it, which is why it's high on that list. But usually my third-party packages can kind of all go together, which I do here. And then I've got these two custom middlewares that I've written. And then there's this rollbar middleware, which I think they recommend to put at the bottom. So I think what I want to do is put the middleware kind of right in the middle of the stack here, because that's as good a spot as any. And to continue with the sorting here, let's just put it as Django-htmx. I don't know that the position really matters too much in this particular piece of middleware, but that's my thought process as we're walking through this. So we now have the actual middleware, and we have the installed app. And I think that's it for what to do for the basic setup. Now there's a bit of extra stuff that we can do, which I'm going to do because I actually want to. One thing that Adam added with this, and I keep saying Adam, so this is Adam Chains. He's I believe he's a Django core Django developer. He's on the technical board, and his name's Adam Johnson. He just happens to go by Adam Chains on here on GitHub. So kind of think of his name in two ways in my head. One of the things that Adam added to this package is this Django-htmx script. And I believe what it does is, like, if there's a problem and you're in debug mode and you have a problem with HTMX, like a view that is rendering with HTMX, if you think about the way HTMX works, it's doing an AJAX request. And that AJAX request is going to do some kind of operation and try and render some HTML. Now, the problem with this method is that if there's a problem with your page, with your view, normally you'd want to see the Django debug page. If you have debug mode on, you get all of the detailed information from the debug page. But with an AJAX request, that's not necessarily guaranteed to happen. So I think what the HTMX script does here is it intercepts those responses in debug mode and takes them out of the AJAX request and kind of splats them up onto the actual page so you can actually read the debug output. So we'll actually play with this and see if it works that way. I want to make sure I understand it myself. I've not used it, but I believe that's how it's going to work, and we're going to add that to the base template. So let's actually do that now, and let's try and break the behavior so we can kind of confirm that it's going to behave that way. So first thing let's start up the web server, and we'll return back to our page over here, and we'll give this page a refresh so it doesn't have that funky button. That number 8 that we just had is now gone, so we can tell that the task deletion code is actually working. It's just the actual response handling is not correct. And we can go into the view, which was, where was that? That would be in this file. And what I want to do is during this post right here, I'm going to just make it blow up. I'm going to raise an exception on isValid. We'll raise an exception and we'll just say boom. So this is just going to trigger this behavior, and it's actually even before the task deletion. So we're not actually even going to delete any tasks, which is good because I don't want to be deleting stuff as side effects of our poking around here. So it should have reloaded, and it did. It's got this line here that says that the file was modified, so it reloaded the worker, which is what we want to have happen. And then we can come into, well, before we do that, let's bring up the inspector, and let's click on one of these tasks, and go ahead and hit delete. And it's going to confirm. Now what's going to happen, what should happen, is there shouldn't be any change to the page. It shouldn't load anything in the delete button because, or it actually might. Well, we'll see. Let's see what happens. Nope. Okay. Cool. This is the behavior I was hoping that would happen, so we can have a real test to see if this little script utility works the way it's advertised. The thing that we have is here's the 500 response. And you can see, because XHR means AJAX, it means what is it? XML HTTP request is the original name of this. It was a Microsoft technology. That's a bit of trivia for you. But when you look at this and get down into it, we can look at the response and ooh, here is our Django debug page. The thing that we'd want to see displayed up here. But instead, it's locked away in this AJAX request. So I could, with some network tools, I could clearly get into this, but that's really inconvenient. It's kind of annoying. So this is what Adam's little script extension is supposed to do. With any luck, it will show up here the next time we do this. So let's go into the base template, and we're going to load Django-htmx tags, I believe was what it said it was called. Oh, it's just Django-htmx. We'll add that to the list of things to load here. Okay, and we can close the settings over here. So now we've got the new tags library is available. It's loaded for this page. And then we can go down to the bottom where I have HTMX, a script tag here. I think what I want to do, I don't know if he really talks too much about the placement. No. All right, I think what it needs to happen is it needs to go right after this. I don't know that the order strictly matters, but it's sensible to load HTMX before loading this other script. So let's try that. We've got these two modifications, and now, with any luck, if we refresh the page, actually, let's go through the whole exercise here and see what this does to the actual source code. So here's the source of the page now, and you can see at the bottom, yeah, there it is. He's got this static Django-htmx little script here. I bet that tag will render nothing if it is on a non-debug view. Actually, that's a little interesting little exercise. Let's go check it out, see if we can figure that out. So this is a template tag. It's in Django-htmx. He's got the, oh, interesting. It's over in Jinja. Yep, there we go. Cool. So if you're in debug mode, or if you're not in debug mode, it should render nothing because you don't want this little extra script in there. So it's only a debug functionality. So it's behaving as we would like it to. And now we're in a position to try it again. So we've confirmed that it is on this page. And if I do this a second time and click this, with any luck, it will actually render. Hey, cool. It renders right in the page. So it has taken this content out of the XHR, the AJAX request, and put it right in a place that where we can actually see it. And it's telling us that it's the exception of boom, which is cool. I'm really thankful for that little piece of debugging help that we get. Let's go back to the course page and delete this exception. We're done checking that out. I think we're actually ready to try this stuff out now. So what else is in this package that we should know about? If we come down, the documentation, I don't think there's a separate documentation page. I think it's such a small package that it's all in this singular README. Maybe that'll change at some point in the future, but as of today, that's the case. And we just did the extension script, so we're actually down into what do we care about. You can see that the middleware adds this HTMX property. So that property is essentially a Boolean. It behaves like a Boolean, does some other stuff too, I think. But when you use it like a Boolean, it tells you if the request is made with HTMX or not. So you can change the behavior in your view if you want to. And in fact, he's got an example here of do a partial versus a complete render. And he's got some other attributes here for different kinds of behavior that you can add. But what I was really after with this whole entire change is this line right here, I believe. The HTTP response client redirect. That's the big difference, is that HTMX is a JavaScript package that is on the client. It's in the browser. And so we're asking the client to do the redirect. And the client has the ability to do that with the window attribute. I think it's like window.href or something like that, and set the status code appropriately, which causes the page to refresh, which is what the effect we're trying to get. So what we want to do is import this response redirect and use that instead of the current redirect that I'm using. Now I want to make sure, just looking through this list and seeing if there's any other stuff in here that I care about. I don't think so. I think there are other features, but I don't think that we need them for tonight. So if you're looking for this package, here's a link that you can go reference later. All right, so what are we doing here? We now have the package available to us. It's totally loaded. It's an installed app. I think it's time to replace this. And I think it behaves just like any other HTTP response. So we want this. And we'll put this under Django right here. It's not used yet, so my linter is complaining. And we'll go back to the bulk delete page. And I think what we can do, I don't think we need to do any of this business anymore. I think we can just go straight for the thing we care about, which is to say, we're going to do a return of the HTTP response client redirect on that. And it's too long. There we go. So redid that. You know what? Because it did that, let's actually pull it out into a local variable. That way it'll make it down into 2 lines. Okay. All right. So that gets rid of that to do. And so I think what that should do is that should give us the right behavior that we expect. Let's check it out. All right, we're going to the delete page. Well, we can make this a little smaller. And let's try deleting lesson 9 here. Now, hopefully, with any luck, the client-side redirect will kick in. And the delete will actually take us back to the course page after we confirm. Hey, look at that. That's so slick. We're right back here. Lesson 9 is now gone. So we did what we wanted to. Oh, that's an interesting message here. Cookies has been rejected because it already expired. I don't understand what that means. And we deleted that one task. Okay, so there is one other one here that we want, and we want to replace this as well. This one is it's the other error condition, which really should only ever happen if somebody has monkeyed with the actual HTTP request, but we'll have it for completeness. All right, so now that we've done that, let's actually go back to the course views file, the test views file, and run all the tests, because there's a possibility that I did a 302 check that's going to fail, because now with this response code, what it's actually doing is, the secret behind it is it's doing a 200 response, but it's using this extra HX redirect header. And I wasn't paying attention to the test that failed, so let's rerun that one more time. I was too quick on hitting enter. All right, test error redirect. Well, that's pretty cool. To test bulk, go to the delete, and we should be able to go. We're done with this little chunk of code for now, and we need to check the redirect. Is there more than one failing here? So this definitely should fail. That's one of them, but there were two. What was the other one? Oh, we'll worry about one thing at a time. So we're going to say that this is actually going to be a 200 response. And instead of checking the location header, what we instead want to do is check the HX redirect header. That's what we're looking for instead. Cool. So that test passes. So this is kind of, the test is now signaling to me in the future that this is using a client redirect and not a standard redirect. This delete, I think, is probably the other failing test. Yeah, okay. Actually, so I guess what we're really doing is testing both of those things that I just changed, both of those returns. This delete is actually the is valid case, and this error redirect is for that case when somebody is like monkeyed with the post data. So the case that should never happen. So I'm actually testing paths that are unlikely to ever be touched in real life, but just had them for the sake of completeness. So we want to change this to a 200, and we want to change this to HX redirect. Redirect. There we go. And now if we run the whole views file again, we should have behavior that we want. Excellent. Okay. Let's go back to the issue itself and see if I've kind of cleared up things now. So we have a button to bulk delete that was on the course page. You saw me navigate to it as I did this process. So this is right here. Delete multiple tasks is not my favorite name in the world, but it is a reasonable name for now. And maybe I'll get some feedback later of like, hey, this could be simply named delete tasks. I don't know if that has enough meaning by itself, but I'll just leave it as is for now. It's fine the way it is at the moment. So we have that bit done. We have the bulk delete UI page. That's this page over here. And we have a notice on here. We set it up in this format. It's pretty simplistic. It doesn't look, it's not the most elegant page in the world, but it's a very functional page. And the average course is probably going to have more detail than this kind of thing. Some of them might actually be scant on detail like this and just be numbers, but that's not always going to be the case. So we have a page. It has checkboxes by each task. Oh, I don't have any show linkage to existing coursework or show existing grades. I'm going to punt on that part. I could add that in, but I don't want to delay getting this feature out. That is an additional benefit. And I put this kind of note here saying, hey, watch out. If you delete this stuff, you're going to delete any additional records. So there are some foreign keys to tasks that are here. And those foreign keys are set to cascade. So by deleting a task, anything that has a foreign key to that task is also going to say, I need to delete myself, otherwise I'm going to violate the database constraints and be referencing a row that no longer exists in the task table. So we have that covered there. We have this confirmation alert. That's the bit that we just did with HTMX to make sure that there is some kind of notice to users that that change is happening. And in the process, we integrated Django-htmx. All right, I think there is a little bit more to this feature that we'll probably do this evening, and that it might just be a slightly shorter stream tonight, but that's okay. I think there was another to-do here. Let's take a look. So this was 446. So let's look for to-do 446. Yeah, one last thing. So this was an edge case that I thought of that I wanted to have in there. And this actually might be a reason for handling, for this being something, a real scenario that might happen, where if somebody submits the page and doesn't delete anything, they click no buttons, what happens? I think that's a totally reasonable expectation for that to be a real scenario. And so we want that to cause some kind of validation. So let's do this. Let's go to the form and make it happen. So we're done here. Let's bring up the course forms. And I guess we also we should do this at this point we can do test-driven development on this. So let's go to the course and test out this particular chunk of functionality. And should be a bulk delete form. There it is. And what we want, looks like there's only one test right now. So we want to have a scenario where there's no data. All right, so we'll take all of this test as a starting point, and we will come down to here, and we'll say what? Test error no tasks. When no tasks are selected, inform the user. So that's like the behavior that we want to happen out of this. The way to check this, I think, is going to be to delete the data that goes into the form. We want the form to be not valid, so this is correct. And we want to have a non-field error, but it shouldn't be this message, it should be something else. We'll say you need to select at least one task. Okay, and then MyPy is complaining, so let's add a little type annotation there because we don't care what goes in this data. And we'll leave the other setup. We'll have some actual tasks in there. Do we care? I don't think we even care about that. There doesn't have to be any tasks because this page is not going to be a page that you can reach unless there are tasks. Maybe we should leave one. Let's leave one, delete the other. So that kind of gives us a representative data set. That's what these first three lines are doing. We've got the user, but right now, this is probably going to fail because it does think it's valid. Because there's no code in here in that form that is checking for that condition. So what we need to do is come down to the bulk delete form, and this is where we need to put the check. So if there are no task IDs, if it doesn't find any tasks, this is a scenario we're trying to protect against. So if not task IDs, again, this is Python, so an empty list is going to be falsy, and that just means that if it has nothing in it, it will evaluate to false. And so this is why we can raise, we can put this guard in this way, without, we don't have to check the RU equal to 0. So this is generally considered more idiomatic Python, to just kind of check the list itself rather than the actual count on the list. So we can say forms validation error and say you need to select at least one task. So that's the extra check there. See if we got it right. Cool. So there's that. And this has been running in the background the whole time. It's probably not the best way to go to actually, I mean, it doesn't hurt, but it was causing reloads every time we were saving that file, which is kind of silly. So let's do this final bit of checking. And let's reload this page. So what I predict will happen here, what should happen, is, well, let's walk through it with the code. Come back to the course view. We're going to have this path. We're going to fall into this path down here. So the form's not going to be valid. We're going to pull out the error message, which is that non-field error. And the way I've designed this form is it's always going to have 1. So I'm pretty confident that I can just index into 0. It's going to add a message to the flash messages area. That's the thing that you see at the top. And since we're returning, and we're doing a client redirect back to this page, and what the effect of is, like, when it gets redirected back to this page, the messages should be in a cookie and they should render. So the user should see the warning that says, hey, you didn't select anything, but they'll be right back where they started. That's what I expect the behavior to be. I guess while I'm doing this, I actually want to do the same thing that we did before. Factor that out into a local variable, just because I think it does. I don't really like that hanging closing parentheses that sometimes Black will put on things. So this just adds a little bit more semantic meaning here. Okay, so we know that that's the behavior we expect to see. So let's try it out now. So let's pick a number. Lucky 13 here. We'll delete. Oops, actually no, that's wrong. That's not testing the behavior. We want unchecked. Unchecked. We'll click delete. Hit OK. Perfect. You need to select at least one task. All right. So functionally, I think this feature is done. We've walked through the case where it deletes a task. Maybe we can do one more test and we can actually try and delete. Let's delete like a bunch of them. Should delete all of those. So 11, 13, 15, and 17 should be gone after this. 11, 13, 15, yeah, all gone. So we've walked through and we've done the happy path of this. We've tested the error conditions. We've got unit test coverage on this. In fact, we can probably run the test suite now and see that it should be a 100% unit test coverage, but we should check. We've added a new library and made use of that library to do client-side redirects. And we talked about why that works, so that's all good. From an actual like software as a service perspective, like there's, people will say like if you don't document something, it doesn't exist, or if you don't do anything. Warframe, I'll get to your question in just 1 second. If you don't tell people, then it doesn't exist. So the things that I'm not going to do in the stream because they're not very exciting, and I found that doing documentation is both really dull on stream and really hard to write well while trying to like communicate verbally with people, it for me at least, it triggers different parts of my brain. And so what I'm going to do after this is I'm going to document the feature in the documentation section of the app. And I'm also going to write a quick product blog post that I can notify users of, hey, there's this new feature available that they can take advantage of. So that's what will finish off this feature to me. Getting to your question, Volm, what languages do I write? I presume you're talking about programming languages. These days, I am writing a handful. I'm writing Python that you see here. If you call HTML, it's a markup language. So is that a language? I would think so, but people are willing to debate me on that because it doesn't have Turing completeness, most likely. Definitely CSS for cascading style sheets. I do JavaScript, very typical web stack. Outside of that, as a side project, I've been writing a bunch of Lua lately. I think those are the languages that I'm touching at the moment. I'm dabbling with Go at work. I have to look at it for reasons. Yeah, that's the primary set. Professionally, in my history, I've done a lot more than that. I've been kind of all over the board between Microsoft stuff and Java enterprise stuff and Perl and other dynamic scripting languages, and then research on more esoteric languages or lesser used languages like Erlang to kind of stretch my brain into functional programming and how that works and stuff. So, but I haven't touched many of those recently. What have I written code in versus what am I doing these days is pretty different answers, but I hopefully answered your question there. Looks like we still have all the tests passing and we've got 100% coverage. So I think that's all good. Whoops, I'm using the chat to type out my terminal commands. Not what I meant to do. So we finished off the to-dos. We've got Django-htmx integrated. Let's go ahead and add it. See if there's any formatting that needs to be done or a lint that I missed. And let's just say finish off bulk deletion. Now, I think there's going to be a problem. Let's just try and figure it out. Let's go back to the main branch. And I think this is up to date. No, it wasn't. I had some other things I had to merge. Super. All right, so let's go back to bulk delete and merge in the main branch. Yep, I knew there's going to be conflicts. Oh, boo. Boo-hoo. Okay. And it's conflicts in really like an annoying place. All right, sometimes though you have conflicts. Let's go fix them up. I just want to like show you that the overall experience of writing a feature doesn't stop when the actual code is done. Like there's not only do I have the other things that I have to do in terms of letting people know about the feature, but there's also the cleanup work of getting it merged and into the main branch and getting it deployed. I don't know that we'll actually do deployment tonight. It's really just watching something scroll by. So that's not very exciting. But yeah, I just want to have this all in here for completeness. So let's take a look at what I got wrong. What's happening is I added Django-htmx, but every month I've got Dependabot configured to update all my packages. So some of these packages were updated and Django-htmx was added into the mix at the time. So I need to deconflict with that. And it looks like there's not too much here. So Django hash field and Django hijack were both upgraded. And then I have Django-htmx there. So let's move that down here and get rid of the diff. So that should clean up that. All right. Now, I could try and go through and clean up this generated file with the requirements.txt. And it doesn't look like it'd be terribly, terribly hard, but I think what I'd rather do is just run the pip compile tool again, and hopefully that will work, although it might complain, but we shall find out. Yeah, okay. It's complaining. It doesn't like the conflict markers that are here. So I think what I'll do is I'll take this stuff out, and I don't know if it's right or not, but we'll try running pip compile again. And with any luck, it'll wipe out the old requirements.txt file and replace it with the new stuff and give me an accurate file. This is all done in a branch, so what I'm going to do is push this up to the code repository as a pull request. So we'll be able to review the full diff anyway, and we'll see if there's any funkiness that I didn't anticipate. So we've got that thing that we fixed, and it generated new stuff there, and is on new thing here. Okay, that looks good. So that was merging in the main branch. So now we should be ready to create the pull request, because I don't think I have one. Tuna hobby. Do I separate them? I kind of do. I don't do them in the way that you're totally saying, though. I don't use folders. So my requirements files for development packages are in a separate requirements file. And I'm kind of, to be honest, I'm a little lazy about this. I probably should be better. To my credit, I'm not like building a Docker image or something. If I was, I would absolutely be pinning all of these things. But I have my requirements dev stuff, which I just sort of layer on top. Now, the very observant people might observe that there's a chance that because I don't pin stuff and I'm doing stuff separately that's not in my deploy, that I could accidentally install something from my development packages and only see this in development, and then experience a problem when I go to deploy, and that it would be a fair critique. I'm trying to remember. Yeah, because I also install my development packages when I'm doing CI work, so there is a risk there. What I bank on is that I'm aware of that risk always, and so I think pretty hard about what I put in here. But hopefully that answers your question. I have thought about, like, maybe I should just put it all in the same place and have one requirements file, because there's nothing about the requirements in file that doesn't say, like, I think I could use comments and say, like, hey, this is my dev section and this is like the app section. That's totally doable. I just choose not to do that. So that's my strategy for doing it. I don't even know that it's the best one. I'm kind of on the fence about it. And I have seen, and I work at a place that does it very differently with like a whole requirements directory and using multiple requirements files to split things out and then kind of combining them in interesting ways. I think where I stand with the simplicity of this application, if you can get away with one, or in my case, 2 files, I would recommend that. It works well for me. Okay, looking back at the repository, we have, oh, you're welcome, Tuna Hobby. Happy to answer your question. There's no pull request here, so we need to create a new pull request. So we're going to do, I have an alias here, so that's what GP is, it's git push. And I'm going to follow this for any changes that I might add. And we're going to go to origin, which is where the GitHub repository is, and we're going to put up bulk delete. So that should push the branch here. And thankfully, I love when GitHub added this messaging here. They gave you a really easy place to open and create new pull requests. And we're going to do that. So let's see, add a bulk task delete feature. This will fix number 446. Fixes 446. Create the pull request. and got all the commits there, which I do like to, after I'm done, CI hasn't run yet, but I like to squash my commits down into a single one so that if I need to revert the change on my main branch, that I get all of that in one go. That's kind of an atomic operation there. Just I probably won't do the merge here today because I'm also going to add documentation to this PR later, but that's my process there. So, this is a bunch of this is from previous streams, and I don't need to bore you with all those details. In fact, if you want to go check this stuff out, I think there's actually a notice that is now popping up periodically on my stream. But my content's up on YouTube. It's available. If you search for Matt Lehman, you can find all of the streams associated with this project. And I don't do everything exclusively on stream, so it's not complete of all the code, but there is a lot of streams about this content, and you can go back a couple of them and check out what's going on. But broad strokes, we made a form. We wrote tests for the form, which we wrote one of those tonight. We wrote view tests for this view page and checked out these error conditions that we walked through. We wrote one of those tonight, or corrected one of those tonight. Added a new URL to the URLs file and added the new view itself. Kind of cleaned things up along the way. And let's see, did we check? We check login required. I want to check that really quickly. I like to make sure the access control tests are there. Yep. So there's that. Okay, there's both of the access control tests. That's what I really care about. So the view looks pretty good to me. It's very straightforward. Hopefully you'll agree with me. There's not a lot of code here. And we added Django-htmx. So this is the purist might say that I should have done that separately and then merged that in. This is my own project, and I'm not much of a purist, so I don't really care. Curiously, I don't know why this happened. I don't know why Django itself got moved from down up here to down here. That I don't really care though. I speculate. I know what I bet it is. I bet I need to upgrade my pip tools, because I think Dependabot from GitHub. Yeah, let's try that. Let's see if I can. I want to understand. I like to understand things. If you can't tell by now, I know it's probably some weird flaw in my character. But if we go back to that requirements dev file, one of the things that's in there is pip tools, and notice that it's not pinned. So I'm just using whatever version that is in this repo, which is 550. And I bet that on PyPI, which we already have up over here, that they have a new version out. And my guess is that new version changes some ordering on the requirements. It looks like it's on pip tools 640. So let's upgrade that. So pip install. Oh man, I don't do a lot of upgrades. Is it upgrade with a capital U? I think that's the way to do it. Cool. We installed pip tools 640 and got rid of the old one. Now let's try and rerun pip compile and see if it will regenerate the order to match up with the order that should be there. Oh yeah, look at this. So this is moved back in the top. So that was the issue. I was on that old version. Let's push that up. I like to, what I'm trying to get at is here is like, I want the diff to be meaningful. I don't want noise in there. And if there is noise in the diff of the branch, I want to like understand why it's in there. Everything about code is understandable as long as you are willing to do enough digging, which is what we're doing here. So let's say fix the order of dependencies to match Dependabot. And that's actually going to in this case, pretty dramatically shrink the dependency changes in that pull request because I'm now syncing it up to what is actually already on the main branch. Johnston F, thanks for joining in. Appreciate you being here. So we have now pushed up that commit, and the requirements text file. Yeah, that's way better. Okay, there's still this thing that is interesting that Dependabot doesn't seem to do this. It doesn't seem to say with Python version, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so it's going to change again when Dependabot comes back. That's okay. I'm okay with a little bit of noise in a diff. But really, we get down to the core of it, which is we added Django-htmx. That's the big change here. That's what we care about. Then we've got this minor modification to the base template. We saw the effect of adding this Django-htmx script tonight. It's a really powerful way to see your errors if you're using HTMX. And we've got here's the button that we added, and then the actual bulk delete page, which we spent the better part of a stream putting together, even though it looks very simplistic. So that's the change. And I think that's a good enough place to wrap up for the day. I hope that you learned a little bit about HTMX this evening. Thank you for the questions. I'm happy to stick around for an extra minute if anybody has a question here at the end. I do try and stream every week when I can, except when I'm running my local Python meetup, which runs the second Wednesday of the month. But generally, I try to be here unless I'm on vacation. And we continue to work through this project. The next thing that we're going to do here, so next time if you want to join in on the stream, is we've got to deal some more bug hunting. So there are some scheduling bugs that a couple of customers have surfaced in weird scenarios, and this is the kind of the sleuthing part of working with this application. But I've said it on previous streams, and I'll say it again. The scheduling tool is the core benefit of working with this homeschooling application. We haven't really spent much time tonight talking about the domain, and that's fine. But what is really the big benefit of using this particular tool, which is called School Desk, is that it generates a homeschool schedule automatically for the user. And so that automatic part is really important to get right, as you might imagine. And users have identified a couple of weird scenarios where it's not quite right. So it's close, but not quite right, which are some of the trickiest bugs to find. Are there any software interns for DoD? Good question. I think the answer is probably not right now, because recently, Doctor on Demand, so DoD isn't the Department of Defense, although it is. I used to work for Department of Defense a long time ago as a contractor, but it stands for Doctor on Demand for those of you that don't know, and Tuna Hobby seems to know where I work, which is cool. Doctor on Demand is a telemedicine company and does a lot of Django, which you've seen here tonight. So that's part of why I'm knowledgeable about it. I use it at work all the time. But we recently merged with another company. We merged with a company called Grand Rounds Health. And I'm not going to go into what Grand Rounds Health does. It's more healthcare kind of work. It's not telemedicine, but it's related to offering services to medical services to people online. Oh, cool. Yeah. Hopefully Doctor on Demand was a good experience for you. But the company, to get back to your earlier question, Tune Hobby, the company merged, and we just recently announced a new name, and that new name is Included Health. And we have a ton of work to do as we're trying to merge companies together. So there is definitely opportunity. There's tons of growth that's happening. I don't know that our recruiters are quite in shape for interns right now, though. So I suspect that come this summer, we will probably be on the lookout for interns, but at this stage, at this time, I don't think that's available. If you want to message me on Twitter and send me an at message and contact me that way, I could probably find out for you from our HR team directly. But my speculation is it's just not right now. Good question, though. Appreciate that. So we're going to work on scheduling bugs next time, and if we'll see how it goes. I'm knowing these bugs and knowing the characteristic of them, we'll probably spend the whole stream on it because these are tricky to track down. And then the act of writing the unit test to prove the failure is a whole other category of problem. And then actually doing the fix is another third thing to do. So there's a lot that goes into finding these very nitty-gritty bugs, but they're important to track down since, again, this is the core part of the product. Thank you all for joining in this evening. I hope you have a great evening, and I wish you well. Again, if you want to catch this later, catch streams, go to YouTube, check that out. If you can, give me a follow here on Twitch. I think that's the right word. And if you catch this on YouTube, like, subscribe, all that stuff. Would greatly appreciate that. And with that, I will bid you all good evening. Take care. Bye-bye.